YouTube. I'm going to do this video here to show you how I create the three-dimensional looking gauges that I use in my videos. So I just opened up Inkscape. It's a free program. You really should get it and learn how to use it. It does a lot of cool, awesome stuff. So the first thing I'm going to do is go into my document properties, and since I'm going to make a gauge that's basically square, I'm going to tell it 300 by 300 millimeters. All right, we'll leave it in millimeters because when we export the image, we can export it any size that we want. Then I'm going to click on grids, tell it new, and major grid line every 5. Yeah, that's cool. And I'll set it to red like that so that now our grid is set up. And if we zoom in, you notice that the major grid lines and the minor grid lines are different colors, all right? And that can become useful sometimes. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to View, Zoom, and Zoom to Page. So here's our page as it's set up, all right? So what I'm going to do is I am going to create a circle. And I just click on the circle, and we'll go from here to here, whatever. So we've got a circle created now, right? So then what I'm going to do is I am going to click on my arrow, click on this circle, and take a look at it. So this is the X and Y coordinates, and this is the width and the height, and you see they're not the same. So I'm going to say, all right, fine, we're going to make this 280 millimeters, and we're going to make the height on this thing 280 millimeters as well. So now we've got a nice even circle, right? And if we zoom in, we can see that the center point of it doesn't exactly line up with grid. Well, it actually does line up with the grid, but I want to line it up with a different grid. So I'm going to drag it over a little bit. There we go. Now the circle lines up with a grid. That's, that's fine. Now what we're going to do is this is an ugly looking color. I don't like that color. So I want this grid to be this thing to be the base of our gauge, and I want it to look a little more cool, right? So I'm going to pick some color. Pick this. This looks nice, lovely. I'm going to right click on this and tell it to set the stroke, which is going to set the stroke as black because that's where I had my mouse. And so now we have this nice line around there. Then what I can do is I can come down here to fill and stroke. And right now, let's see where we at. Did I click on the right one? Yes, fill and stroke. Here we are down here. So I'm going to go stroke style, and it's at 1 millimeter. I'm going to increase that to 2. And so now we've got a nice thick line. All right, so that's going to form the basis of the back of our gauge. All right, that's going to form the basis of the back of our gauge. So then what I'm going to do is under fill and stroke, I'm going to say, let's go with this kind of a fill, which is a gradient. And so now you see it goes from the yellow to this. And if I click on this tool over here, right, we get this. And so I can click on a dot and I can pick a different color. So you see I can make the gauge look like anything that I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click and I'm going to click and I'm going to add a couple of dots. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say this dot, I want it to be a very light gray. All right. And then this dot, I want it to be like the darker version of this. And then this outside dot, I'll pick a dark gray. So, whoop, wrong one. I want this to be the darker brown, and I want this one to be a very dark gray. So now that I've done that, I'm going to take this dot and I'm going to slide it over like that, and take this dot and slide it over like that. And you see now we've got this kind of like a ring around it, which I think looks pretty cool. But I could, I could change it more than that if I wanted to. I could add more dots in there and throw more varying colors. So I'm going to hold the control key and zoom in and just kind of show you that, what it would look like. So if I clicked on here to create a new dot, and then I took this dot and I made it very, very light, I could pick this up and bring it over like that, and then take this and bring it really close to that, and I could change how the colors drop off. All right. Now I don't want this thing sliding around. I like it where it is. So I'm going to click on Object, and I am going to click, oh, no, wait, doing it wrong, sorry. I'm going to click on this, then click on the object, and then what I'm going to do is click on Objects, and I am going to tell this thing, where am I at? Oh, I want to lock it. I want to lock it into place. Object properties, that's what I want. And then tell it lock. So now that it's locked, I can't accidentally goober it up, which is something I'm apt to do sometimes. So now I need some little like tick marks on here. So I'm going to take a rectangle, and we'll come in here and I'll draw some kind of a tick mark like that. And I can grab a corner and I can drag it down and make it a little bit more rounded if I like, which I do. And then I can click over here on the fill and stroke, and I can say, okay, let's go to the stroke style, and I don't want that super wide, so I'm going to make it 0.5. And so now we've got this this nice looking color like that. And if I wanted to, I could actually give it that gradient look. I can go in here to my fill and stroke and then tell it fill, and we could do a gradient fill like this, and you see we get the same kind of little thing, only it's just singular. And I'm going to double click in here, click in here, double click. Come on, I want to add a point. Why am I not adding a point? But I want to add a point. It's giving me fits. Should be able to add a point to it. Click on it, click on this. There we go, and I want to go plus. There we go, now I got a point. I don't know why it was fighting me. So I'm going to say we're going to make that like a super bright yellow. Maybe not. Let's go with white. And then I'll make this one a dark, and I'll make this one a dark, like that. There we go. So now it looks kind of nice. All right, I'm digging that. So now that we've got that, all right, we want to make it rotate around here. We want several of them. And to do that, we can use a rotate command, which is part of transform. But right now, it would rotate it around the center, and that's not what I want. So when I click again, you see that little plus sign? That's where it'll rotate around. And what I want to do is I want to put that in the middle of this thing here. But to get it exact is kind of hard. So what I'm going to do is kind of cheat. I'm going to make a very small circle like this, okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Object, and I'm going to unlock all, and I'm going to click this object, and then I'm going to click this object, and I'm going to go down here to Align and Distribute, and I'm going to click this and this, which puts it right dead in the center. Now I've got a good reference point. All right, so then I'm going to take this, and I'm going to lock it again with the object properties, so it can't move. Now I can click on this and click again to get my little dot, move it down here, zoom in and say, yeah, the center point is right here. There, now I've got the center point of this. Okay, I've got this guy selected. So now I can go to Object, and then I can hit Transform. And when I go to transform, I can hit rotate. And let's say I want this thing every 20 degrees. Why not? So I hit 20. So now anytime that I hit, like if I hit this direction, I go apply, you see it's going to start rotating that thing around, right? So I've got it here. So now I'm going to hit Control D to duplicate it. And I'm going to change the direction here and put one and hit Control D. Put one, Control D, Control D, Control D, Control D. Just keep on going. And do I want one more? No, I'm good. So now we've got all of our little tick marks. All right, yay, that looks good. Now we need a pointer. So we'll come over to this tool and I'll kind of zoom in a little bit and I'll go, let's say, from here to here to here, and we'll come up, oh, like here and then here, right? And I'm done. Right click, so I'm done. Then I'll pick a color. I'll pick this color and say, yeah, that looks pretty cool, except that this tip here is a little bit off. So I'm going to click on this and say, you need to be there instead of there. So now I've got a pointer. Okay, so I'm going to take my pointer and I'm going to bring it over here and I'm going to realize that it's kind of way too small. So I'm going to grab this and I'm going to make it bigger like that. And that looks good. Now temporarily, I'm going to take this pointer and I'm going to drop it down a layer. No, that's too far. I put it all the way to the bottom. Let's bring it up. There we go. So now I can say, all right, this thing should rotate around here. That's pretty good. Yeah. So then I click on it again and I get that little point. I'll bring that little point down here and stick it in the center. Oh, I hit it right on the nose. So now that I've got that, I can test it. If I go to this transform and I start going like that, you see we can move this dial around. All right, so that's great. So I'm going to say 20 degrees again, and we'll go back there and we'll put this right on this first tick, and then I'm going to bring it to the top. So now we have all of our pieces parts. We've got our gauge and we've got all these little tick marks and everything else. So what we want to do is go to layers, and right now we have one layer, and I'm going to take that layer and I'm going to rename it and I'm going to call it base. All right, because it's going to be the base. It's going to be everything that's the base. Then I want to add a new layer and I want to put it above the current one, and I'm going to call it pointer. Like that. So now you see I've got pointer and base. Well, everything is already assigned to base because that's what I drew it in. And you can make a layer and then draw things in that layer, pick the layer you want, draw it. But what I want to do is I want to make this pointer part of this group. So I click on it and then I right click and I say move to layer and I tell it pointer. So now I've got a drawing. It's got two major components. It's got a base and it's got the pointer. All right. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go File and I'm going to go Save As. And then normally we would save it as an SVG, but we're going to go and tell it we want to save it as a Synfig animation. Okay. So we're going to come in and I've got a little thing here for my PyGPIO, and I'm going to make a new folder and call it New Gauge. All right, and I'm going to put this in here and just call it Gauge like that until it's save. So now it's saved as a Synfig. Say it up here, saved as a Synfig shape. And at that point, we're finished with Inkscape. But just in case I want to go back and edit it in Inkscape, I'm going to go save as, and I'm going to go in my same thing and I'm going to save it with the SVG format. That way I can always come back to here if I want to. And now I'm going to close this. Okay, in the first part of the video, we created a really good graphic of a gauge. But right now it's just a graphic. It's just going to sit there. So this is Synfig Studio. It's a free program. It's a great animation program, and we're barely going to scratch the surface of what it can do. It's another one that you should have in your arsenal of programs because it allows you to do a lot of things. You can make full video movies with this program if you learn it properly. But for us today, we're going to keep it simple. So we're going to go up to File, we're going to go to Open, and we're going to save the gauge that we previously created. Now it's going to tell me that we're doing it with an old version, but it doesn't matter, it's fine. And then we'll click on this, which will bring it up to full screen. So as you can see over in the right hand corner, we have our base and we have our pointer. And we want to affect the pointer. And as you can see, if I grab this little dot and I swing it around, we can move this anywhere we want to. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to start an animation. We're going to go over here to this little guy here and click that on, and we're going to say we want to start the animation with this at 0 degrees. And as soon as we do that, it creates what's called a keyframe. That's this little dot right here. So it knows at the beginning, this is the setting that we want to have. All right, we're going to make our video 100 frames, which will give us 100 positions in here that you can use. So whatever you're doing in Gambus, you know, a power reading, a speed reading, or whatever, you can convert it to 1 to 100, and you'll have 100 frames, which I found to be plenty. You could create more than that or less than that, depending on what you're doing. But if I take this and I drag it over, let's see, I want to go all the way out to 100 frames. And I want to take this and I want to drag it like this. You can see over here, we're seeing what frame we're on. And I want to drag it, and you have to do it in this gray area. And there we go, 100 frames. So now anything that we do here is going to make another one of these little tick marks. So I can take this and drag it around like this, and I could manually tweak it in, or I could do it with entering an angle down here. I'm close enough. I think that looks good. I'm not going to bother doing anything else. I'm going to tell it stop. We're done. We have a start point. We have an end point. If I tell it to go all the way to the beginning, it's going to go to frame 100. If I tell it to play, you see it's going to go and it's going to show the animation. And it's jerky right now because it's just like a quick preview mode. And it doesn't know the full timing and all kinds of stuff. Really simple. It's not a big deal. We're going to go to File. We're going to go to Render. And now we're going to give it some specifics. The first thing I'm going to do is go to Time. And I'm going to say start at frame 0, end at frame 100. So now it knows what I want it to render. So if I just hit render right now, it would do a movie, an AVI. We don't want that. We want a series of pictures. So we're going to click on this, and I like PNG format. Looks really nice and has transparency. All right, these are all your different selections. GIF would be another one. If you want to use GIF, you can use GIF. Like I say, I've used Ping. Ping worked out good for me, so I'm going to stick with Works. Then I'm going to go to the image, and it says, how about I make this image 1133 pixels big? Well, I don't need something that big. I'm going to make a little gauge. Probably 150 or 200 would be good, but I'll go 300 because it's still going to be fairly small pictures. It'll load in quickly, and it'll look great even if I enlarge it. So I've done all of that. All I have to do is hit render, unless I want to increase the quality, and I'll go to quality 9. We'll have the greatest looking little gauge that there can possibly be, and we hit render. If you see up here, it's creating our frames. In this case, it's creating our images. Ta-da, it's done. So now that it's finished, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go File, and I'm going to go Save. So that saves our animation in case we want to come back to it and look at it later and tweak it out or anything. But you could do all kinds of cool things with this. You could have sliding parts or gears turning or whatever your imagination wants to do. So I'm going to close Synfig out. I'm going to open up our browser, and if we go to where I got my files, Personal, and then I go down to here where we created new gauge, look at that. We have all of these great little pictures now that we can just import, and then when we specify what picture we want, we'll get our little gauge moving and it'll look absolutely fabulous. So for now, that's all we're going to do in this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Stay tuned and we'll learn how to take these graphics and bring them into Gambus and actually start manipulating them so that you can play around with some incredible graphics features. Thanks for watching.